better at their job, and today is no different. So today we are going to be focusing on wellness. Wellness is increasingly important in the workplace. We recently did a Candidate Motivators Report here at Lenza 2023. Wellbeing, work-life balance ranked as 2 of the top 5 reasons to why people either stay with an organization if they do it well, or to attract candidates to an organization. So wellness is very important. The ability to deliver and develop a wellness program is very important today. Even if we look at some of the Forbes studies that have been released fairly recently, they said that employees are 3 times more likely to stay with an organization if they know that their employer cares about their well-being. Alongside that, also 71% are less likely to experience burnout, again, if they feel their employer cares about their well-being. And thirdly, really importantly, their employees are 5 times more likely to advocate for their employer as a great place to work. Okay, so that leaves us where we go. Okay, so what are the steps? Where do we start? How do we think about developing a comprehensive wellness program? How do we get buy-in for that program, and how do we make it work? So who we invited today? We've invited Ryan McGrory. He's the CEO of a business called Exsona, and he comes with 10 years plus specifically looking at wellness programs. And he's going to take you through a discussion today about how to develop a really comprehensive wellness program. And with that, I'll pass to Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much, and what a wonderful introduction. It's great here to be speaking with you all today. As Peter mentioned, I'm going to be sharing a practical step-by-step process for how you would build a wellness program that delivers from the ground up. So I might jump over to my slides just now if we can get them on screen. As Peter shared, my name is Ryan McGrory, so I'm the founder of Exsona, an organisation that helps companies with their well-being, their culture, their employee experience strategies. Personally, I'm actually a recovering journalist and marketer, actually, so that's my background. That's what I used to do in a former life before I started working in the well-being space. I spent around 10 years at UE Insurance, and it was there that I started working promoting well-being programs, and eventually looking after employee experience, people analytics, engagement, communications, and recognition as the head of employee experience and communication. And it was in that role that I built my first wellness program from scratch. It was pretty successful, went on to win 3 HR awards, being named as the best health and wellbeing program in Australia. It was also studied by Deakin University, and with the analytics that we measured both the health impact that it was having on our people and the return on investment it was providing to the business. So I've studied and relied a lot on marketing psychology, gamification, and people analytics in most of the products, the programs, and strategies I've designed, because I feel it's important to engage people effectively, to communicate efficiently, and measure the impact of everything. And with Exsona, that's what we've continued to do. So build world-class wellbeing programs, design analytical models to measure wellbeing, contribute to research, work with top HR tech companies, and partner with neuroscience institutes to further improve workplace wellbeing. So, okay, so the challenge today is for me to get through this in 20 minutes. I know when you come to webinars, you want to learn a few things, you want to take away a few things, and you want to do so quickly. So it's my mission to do that without boring you to death. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of wellness solutions, what workplace wellness is, what we can do for wellness in our own workplaces. And for that, I'm going to share a step-by-step guide for how you create a top-class wellbeing program. Before we put our attention to 2 very important questions, as Peter mentioned. 1, how do we get buy-in from our senior leaders? And 2, how do we measure wellbeing? And we're going to do all this in 20 minutes before we spend a few minutes on Q&A. Sound good? All right, let's go. So let's take a quick journey and a look back through the history of workplace wellness. So back in the day when most of us started working, the general attitude was leave your personal life at home. and come to work. You're expected to show up and kind of leave your problems behind. Thankfully, times have changed a little bit. We've come a bit of the way since then. Most workplaces now understand the importance of supporting their employees' well-being. We've entered into a phase of what I called acceptance, where EAP or employee assistance programs have become the norm. That's kind of a good start, but perhaps not enough. I think after this phase, we entered into the sugar hit phase, where companies attempted to solve workplace well-being problems with fruit bowls, yoga, and table tennis. Now, well, that stuff's pretty good. It's fun. It's good for promoting health as well. It doesn't actually address the root causes of a lot of workplace issues and well-being issues, such as toxic leadership, burnout, and anxiety. So, what was that? Your boss is an arsehole and you get a manic workload and no autonomy. Here's a banana. It doesn't quite work like that. Recently, spurred on by the pandemic, we've kind of gone digital with a lot of well-being solutions or wellness solutions. We've seen a bunch of expensive tech promising to cure everyone's well-being woes, but then see only a fraction of employees using it. And I think now where we're at is at this critical point where it's now legislated that we assess well-being in our organizations by looking at psychosocial hazards. And I wonder what will happen next. Like, this legislation is only new. Where will we go? In my view, it's a choice that we have to make in our own organizations. It's, do we simply tick a box and go through the risk management process and make sure we're compliant? Or do we actually take the right level of action to create a truly supportive and healthy workplace culture? So we're here today to discuss workplace wellness, well-being. When it comes to psychosocial hazards and workplace culture, it's really about workplace well-being. Definition for workplace well-being. Now, I've heard heaps of ways that it's been described, but put simply, workplace well-being is about how we feel at work. And we all know that our well-being is pretty individualized. It's an individualized thing because it's about how we feel, and how we feel at work is largely influenced by how we feel about ourselves, the work that we're doing, and the workplace that we're in. Now, like overall well-being, workplace well-being is on a continuum. We can move up and we can move down it depending on how we're feeling. When we feel capable and at our best, we're probably in that green area. When we feel less capable or less great, we tend to slide down the continuum. Now, of course, at times we'll experience challenges in life at work. That's how things go. But when that happens, we'll likely slide up and down the continuum, depending on what we're experiencing, how we're able to cope, and the support that we have available to us. Now, overall, obviously, our goal is to spend most of our time in the green area, but also have the ability to return quickly to it whenever we find ourselves out of it. I think it's not only important to define what workplace wellness is, we also need to know what impacts it. So in general, well-being's dependent on good health, positive social relationships, and the availability or access to basic resources. Now, how we're traveling in those areas are likely going to influence where we are on that continuum that I just shared before, either in general or just any given day. We fluctuate. But at work, our well-being can maybe be categorized into 5 elements. So we've got our physical well-being. That's how healthy, strong, and energetic we are or feel. We've got our financial well-being. So that's how comfortable we feel about our finances. Career well-being, our satisfaction with our occupation or where things are going. We've got social well-being. So that's our relationships and how we connect with others. And then lastly, community well-being. So that's our relationship with the work community or a sense of pride and belonging. Now, it's important to remember that how well we're going in each of these areas or how well we're supported in each of those areas impacts our overall well-being at work. So if that's what helps or that's what supports it, then let's take a look at what jeopardizes our workplace well-being. And there's a whole bunch of things that affect these elements, like culture and the environment they're in, how our roles are designed, how people speak to each other. But there's a lot of research to show that we should be paying attention to these 10 or so factors as they have a tangible influence on workplace well-being. Now, they call these factors psychosocial hazards. I mentioned them a little bit before. They're legislated in our companies that we assess them. And they refer to aspects of work design, work organization, workplace culture that have got the potential to cause psychological or physical harm to employees. So some of the psychosocial hazards I've put on screen just now, and they include demand and control, opportunity and security, trauma, relationships, leadership, change, recognition and reward, safety, stigma, work-life balance, and a few other things. But I like to look, whilst those things could be overwhelming, I like to think about what we can do or how we can influence things, as a lot of you are probably asking as well. It's probably why you're attending. And the question is well-being something that we can influence? And my answer is always hell yes. And I want to show you how in this session. I think strategically, the best approach is probably to focus on how you can improve happiness by providing opportunities for people to support their workplace well-being, to reduce risk, to actually remove and control some of those workplace factors that we just spoke about, so the 10 that were outlined. And then thirdly, support people to get better, have a sound approach to helping people who are sick or injured, so in that amber, orange or red space, return to health as soon as possible. So if you're serious about this and you care about making a difference in workplace, then the best thing you could do is create a well-considered well-being strategy and program for your people. And if you've stuck in this far, you probably don't need to be convinced. However, if you need some extra inspo for why focusing on wellness is a good thing, then what we believe that you should focus on are the fact that looking after your people is the right thing to do. Healthier people typically perform better. Better well-being improves a group's ability to show up, focus, and collaborate, leads to better performance. Poor well-being, so the adverse side of this, leads to more mistakes, errors, and calamities. And also a great approach to well-being, as Peter mentioned at the start, improves your position as an employer of choice and ability to attract top talent. So we could go on about each of these for ages, and I'll save you time in talking about the costs associated with absenteeism, attrition, workers' comp, productivity, mistakes and errors, and recruitment, because you probably know that already. But when it comes to cultivating well-being or building a wellness program, there's no escaping that there's a bit of hard work. So like anything, if you want results, you're going to have to earn it. When we avoid doing the work, we end up with the sugar hit solutions we were talking about before, or the misfit actions. So like trying to solve chronic fatigue with the fruit bowl. However, what trips most well-intentioned projects up is the planning part. I've watched this many times. So teams or individuals that really want to impact well-being and really want to work hard, but end up coming up wanting. But if you want to build a wellbeing program that actually connects to your business strategy, that makes an impact, connects to your people, and shows actual results, then we've created a pretty simple guide for you to follow. Now, it works for businesses of all sizes, all budgets, all maturity levels, no matter where you are on your wellness journey. You only need two things. And the first is to give a shit, and the second is to be ready to take action. So I'm going to show you what that looks like now. And it's our guide. So our guide is built around 4 stages, and I'll walk you through some of the steps just now. But the first main stage is the discover stage. So that's looking at your objectives, researching your current state, and gathering your insights. Next is where you develop your ideas, assess opportunities, and prioritize the key features of your strategy and program. Following that, we go into design. So that's getting to the design of your strategy, your program, your brand, your story, all the stuff that's going to support it. And then finally delivering it. So that's where you build the strategy into your processes and platforms and roll it out. Now, this is a kind of high level, put things into 4 stages to try and make them simple, but I'm going to share now the key steps within each stage. Now, I will say that these steps are all tried and tested. These are things that I've relied on to create multi-award winning programs from the ground up, from scratch, and build new strategies or review strategies as well. The guide we have is actually a published document that we'll share with you. It's been downloaded by people in over 700 organizations around the world now. And we've had incredible feedback on how it's helped people in culture, employee experience, well-being, even safety, OD roles, build their own strategy and program. And it all kicks off with that discovery or discover phase. So that's the inward exploration phase. And it's about understanding purpose, aligning it with your business goals. So finding out where your business is at, where it wants to go, and how well-being can support those goals and objectives specifically. And also it's about getting a real-time pulse of your company's well-being. It can include a deep dive into competitor activities, and most importantly, listening to your people can reveal invaluable insights. Now, once we've gathered this intelligence, we then transition to the develop phase. So this is the kind of creative arena, brainstorming innovative ideas, getting participation from your people, ensuring there's leadership alignment and prioritizing all of the actions. So in short, discover gives you the why, and then the develop stage crafts the how for you. And creating a top-notch program obviously requires both good initial thinking and research, but also visionary thinking and practical execution. And that's where the design and the deliver phase comes in. So in the design phase, you can think of yourself as a storyteller. It's about, once you've decided what's going into the wellness program, you're then thinking about how you frame the narrative and the brand, so how you communicate what you're doing. And this is where we breathe life into our strategies or programs by establishing our brand story, planning all the engagement activities, defining the measurements that is going to quantify success, and then considering your resources and also your risks. So once that blueprint is laid out, which is basically everything that you're going to do to achieve all of the things you outlined in the previous phase, and move on to the last phase. And that's where you integrate your brand into the business's very fabric. So setting up clear communication channels, initiating the program, expanding the network, so the people that can help support and be ambassadors for the program, and remain committed to the continuous evaluation and improvement. So in essence, design sketches the dream and the deliver phase realizes it. Now, we published the guide earlier this year, which is really a walkthrough that takes you through each of those steps in detail for how you would design your own wellbeing program and strategy. And we're going to share that with you. But the steps that I've outlined before are things that every business can take, regardless of your size, and everyone can deliver in order to set up the right program that's going to be specific for you, your team, your business, and where you're at and where you want to go. But there's probably two questions I get asked most often, and we're going to cover them today. So the first is, how do we get buy-in from above? And the other is, how do we measure well-being? Now, these might seem elusive, but there's actually heaps of solutions to this. So I'm going to share some with you now to consider. So I like to think in threes, or I like to think in tens. And here are 10 reasons, or 10 ways, or 10 opportunities that you can engage your senior leaders to convince them of well-being, or to engage them in wellness, engage them in the building of a wellness program, and get their approval, their buy-in from the very start. And of course, the earlier we do this, the better. If they're involved in building the program or have insight on the why behind the program in those early stages, then they're more likely, it's more likely to be sticky, it's more likely to get approval, they're more likely to be on the journey and become ambassadors of the program and early adopters, which is what you want. But the first thing I think is about presenting data. So senior leaders, we all know, are usually swayed by data. And for this, it's about gathering statistics on the state of well-being and how it correlates with productivity, retention, and other key performance indicators. Now, showing the ROI, so the return on investment, and emphasizing this, also a very a persuasive technique for speaking to that audience. So that's highlighting how well-being programs can reduce absenteeism, improve productivity, and decrease turnover, all of which save money in the long run. And there's a few organizations out there that can convert some of those statistics into dollar signs, either using indicators that exist out there already or using their own recruitment data, their own retention data. So i.e. how much it costs to replace people. And you can show the actual dollar return on investment that are the before and after, or even having it in your business case shows that you have the correct objectives that align with the business objectives. And storytelling, it can be really effective in this group. So we talk about ROI and presenting data. That's probably winning the minds, and storytelling could be winning the hearts. So that's sharing real stories of employees who have benefited from an improvement in well-being, or the initiatives that you have run previously. So this makes the abstract concept of well-being often more tangible to this audience. The fourth one is competitor analysis. So that's highlighting what competitors or industry leaders are doing in the well-being space. And nobody wants to be left behind. You can look at who your competitors are for top talent in the market and figure out what they're doing, and get some information on what they have from a well-being perspective and line that up about what you're doing. And if they're doing better, then it's often a good motivator for people to invest in well-being. Pilot programs. Now, if you're struggling to get off the ground with a overall and expansive holistic well-being program, often a pilot program on a small scale can demonstrate success in a controlled group and can persuade leaders about the feasibility and benefits of a broader rollout. In fact, recently I ran a pilot program for an executive group. So it was a well-being program just for the executives, which then became the broader well-being program that went out to everyone. So I was actually using the people I was trying to convince about the well-being program in the pilot itself, so they could firsthand experience it, which could be really valuable if you're looking to engage that audience. Now, in that audience, usually at the executive table or in senior leader group, you can find some people who are already passionate about well-being and partner with them. And they can be your support, they can be your ambassadors and can help influence their peers to get involved or get their buy-in or show some commitment. Demonstrating alignment can be really important. So that's showing how a well-being strategy aligns with the company's core values, its mission, its long-term goals. So my first engagement with a client is usually figuring out where the organization is and where it wants to get to. So forgetting well-being for a moment, but actually studying the environment. And that is about the mission, the goals, the value, where the company's at, what the objectives are, what they want to achieve in the next 2, 3, 5, 4 years. Is it that they want to hire lots of people to get there? Is it one they want to improve their skill in a particular area? Is it they want to engage customers in a different way? Understanding this gives you a great opportunity to then align well-being to the company's goals. And I think this one is often missed in a lot of cases, and well-being gets created as a silo and it's seen as a people and culture project that's just for employees to keep them happy, whereas real well-being should be able to set up your organization in a way that allows it to achieve its goals quicker, better, faster, or with more return. So there could be some additional potential concerns. So I think thinking about your executive group or thinking about your senior leaders, if it's a pitch that you're doing, if it's a business case, if you're trying to gauge their appetite for doing something in the well-being space, if you're going to ask for a heap of money or some resources, and thinking about their counter arguments. So for example, if a concern is about budget, then you would change your pitch, your business case to be about cost-effective well-being solutions. So knowing these counter arguments up front can really change how you pitch well-being to these leaders. And then, as I mentioned before, involving leaders can be really, really effective. So inviting senior leaders to be part of initiatives, workshops, and programs. So when they experience it firsthand, they're far more likely to support it. Often as well, senior leaders are impacted most in an organization by stress and pressure, and that's usually manifests in sleeplessness, decision fatigue, poor health of that particular demographic group. And it's a good one to target first and within, so that it's also not seen by your people as something separate to what the execs are doing, and they become your role models for this. Now, once you get the initial buy-in, I think quickly having a structure around how you update that group. So regular senior leader updates about the progress, the success, the learnings, the participation rates, because this maintains engagement and showcases the ongoing value of initiatives. They're reminding this group that employee well-being isn't just a nice to have, but a strategic imperative in today's business landscape can be very effective. So it paints the picture of not being left behind. And I think reminding this group overall that it directly impacts bottom line, it impacts culture, and it impacts the ability to attract and retain top talent, can identify the risks of not doing something as well. In my experience, there are probably the 3 most effective things to focus on. If you only have to focus on 3 of them, are to present data, to show the return on investment, and actively involve this group from the very beginning. So that'd be my 3 tips there. Now, we don't have any measures, or wellness is too hard to measure is probably the thing I hear most, but it's bollocks. And I'm sorry, but there are heaps of ways out there to measure well-being, and you're probably doing a few already. Again, I thought of a list of 10, though there are definitely more. But this list of 10 are all ways that you can measure, or you are measuring well-being. I've seen things displayed in very good ways, and I'm going to share one with you in a moment. But I'll talk through each of these just now and how they can help you. So the first off is, the easiest one to think of. It's the one we probably often go to most, but it's employee surveys. So whether you're doing it regularly or whether you have it as an index on your engagement survey, but including questions that are specific to mental and emotional health, to work-life balance, to job satisfaction and workplace relationships, could really give you an indicator for how you're going, and also a benchmark for improvement after launching or building your program. Now, apart from those types of surveys, you could consider pulse checks. So that's like monthly, quarterly pulse checks to gauge sentiment or identify any emerging issues or anything that you have to react to with a wellness solution. Now, focus groups can be sometimes overlooked. I love focus groups, so you get really honest answers from people. So small, diverse group of employees who can talk to you about wellbeing initiatives. And you can engage this group as an ambassador group as well if you want to do 2 in 1. Health metrics could be really useful for collecting. There's a lot of free surveys out there, or partnering with different organizations can help you track the anonymous, of course, but the average health of your population, or let you take a look at the overall health risk. And there's a few providers out there. Virgin Pulse is one. I think Bupa health insurance does the same. They help you survey your people. But this can indicate where you should focus your wellbeing activities on, or how you measure the improvements over time. Productivity, if you're going to measure for that, that's really good. Looking at monitor metrics like output, project completion rate, or even sales figures. You can then do some nice splits or correlations with the data based off of wellbeing participation and show the improvement before and after you launch. So absenteeism and presenteeism, they're probably the ones that companies focus on the most. So an increase in any of those might suggest burnout or stress. And additionally, if you have a measure for presenteeism or a way to look at it, then you can tell when people are functioning at their best and when they aren't, and that could affect you seasonally, perhaps. Attrition rates or turnover rates can be a sign of low job satisfaction and well-being. Give feedback channels, so you can set up designated feedback channels for people to give feedback or raise concerns related to well-being. Now you can do workshops as well, and also set up some benchmarking, so you can compare your metrics with any other industry standards or similar sized companies to know where you stand. Now, I'm not going to share something with you in the last few minutes that's really simple, effective, and rarely attempted in wellbeing programs. And it's probably the reason, or one of the key reasons, where I've won so many awards. And it's by having a simple formula that you can repeat for anything really that you do in the people space. And that's correlating wellbeing participation with business metrics. I'm going to walk you through how to do this, because again, it's something you can do regardless of your size or your maturity level with collecting or using data. But the first thing you have to do is track attendance or completion of your wellbeing initiatives, activities, or events, or whatever you do in the wellbeing space. So whenever you can, capture the participation data, and all you really need to do is know who was there, what they did, and when. So if you put on a breakfast, a wellbeing breakfast, or you run a yoga session, or you do some mental health training, it's about capturing that participation data to all of your wellbeing activities. And then once you have that, you can separate your data into 3 different groups. So group 1 is for people who are involved in 2 or more things a month, or whatever period that you're referencing. Group 2 is for those who are involved in 1 thing per month. And group 3 is for people who aren't involved in anything per month. So depending on your employee headcount and how many activities you run, you can do this monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever you like, but it gives you a good base to then start looking at the impact of your program. And then what you do afterwards with those 3 groups is collect the average or the aggregated data for some other business measures. Now, the 3 I had most success with was absenteeism, so sick leave data, employee satisfaction that we got from our pulse survey results, and turnover, so the attrition rates. And with some simple correlation, you can determine the impact that your wellbeing efforts are having on the population. Now, you can get granular. So if you want to run a model that looks at the 30-day experiences, so for example, look at, say, 6 months worth of data and split everyone's experience into 30 days and what they did in a 30-day period, and then what their relationship was like with these measures in the 30 days following, then you can get a little more advanced. But this, just in a simple correlation, can help you illustrate the impact that well-being is having on your population, and then you can study it further. You can get into even more of a granular detail and look at what particular things that you're doing in this space is having the most amount of impact. If you're collecting data well enough, and say your events on mental health training is having a higher impact with these things, or is it, a fun activity you did on cupcake decorating in the well-being space, or language lessons or guitar lessons or whatever it is. So I'm going to show you some data now. This is real data from a client of mine. That's something me and my team helped them pull together with existing data and set a framework for how they measured their program. And it's a relationship, and its relationship with these items. And this isn't hard to do. You can achieve it yourself, again, just by collecting the participation data. That they were also able to turn their turnover figure into a dollar figure and show the savings that the program was making. They were also able to focus on converting, once they knew who they were, the 0 group, so that group 3, into 2+ people. So that's looking at, well, who's not attending regularly, and can we convince them to move up? Can we get them doing 1 thing a month? Can we get them to 2+ thing a month? And that's what the real value in collecting data can give you, thereby, changing and improving the metrics. You're actually saving the business more money. So we've also run models that can look at productivity or customer satisfaction score or learning engagement or leadership or really anything that you collect data on. Once you have the participation data as your base, you can do what you like with it. I like to share this one because this is the one that I think clients get most value from, and the benefit I like is it's really easy, or relatively easy to do. You don't need teams of data scientists to do it for you, and execs love it if you promote that stuff. And in my experience, you tend to get more budget when you show that there's a real relationship between what you're doing and how much money you're saving the company. So in a nutshell, this is the stuff that we do at Exsona. I'm not going to bang onto that because I think there might be a few questions, but I'll wrap up just now. And before I do, just touch on the key points of things to remember. So 1, workplace well-being is about how we feel at work. 2, you can definitely impact it. 3, take a look at what you're doing right now. So how are you going when it comes to well-being? In that discovery phase, could you set yourself a mission to figure out how you're going? And then from there, set some goals, include your senior leaders, develop a program, and then measure your impact. So a bit of hard work, but the steps and the plan is there for you to achieve success. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for that, Ryan. Some excellent content, really, really useful stuff. And I've got to say, you got through a lot of content in 25 minutes.
It was a challenge, but
you did very well. I do have a couple of questions. I'll make them snappy. I appreciate we've ran over, and you've got stuff you need to do as well. But you've given us a lot of stuff there. If people are working on a limited budget, and I know there's no silver bullet, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit because I've got fruit hit in my mind, and I'm conscious that people don't just got out fruit bowls, right? But in terms of on a limited budget, what's the first thing you would do, or what would you do first? Like, what can you do to make an impact in the short term with a limited amount of money?
I would actually just rely on the people who work there. So some of the best things that we've had, and I mentioned a few of them in this call. So measuring these things for a long period of time, and we've done everything you can think of. The company and the programs I've run used to do 300, 400 events and activities a year. Some of them really expensive, some of them cost nothing. But it's actually the ones that cost very little or nothing that gave the best amount of impact. So a few examples just to illustrate that is we went out to employees and said, who here speaks a language, who here knows how to play an instrument, who here has a special talent, and would you like to teach a class on it? Now, depending on your environment, those things could be really helpful. And this was in a call center environment, so people sitting down for long portions of the day on the phones, doing pretty maybe monotonous flows, perhaps. It was like this was an opportunity to get out and learn something that might have been on your bucket list, and it was provided by other employees. So, we did classes on Spanish and French and Afrikaans and Maori and all these different languages. We did cupcake decorating, cooking. We did all this stuff that was provided by staff. And the real stuff that people love is just getting engaged in something that's going to stimulate them, that's a little bit fun, perhaps, that's actually meaningful, something that contributes to a passion of theirs and is supportive. And it shows that the organization is a culture that supports its people as well. Now, that's probably the best one I could think of. But where to start is, know how much you have, try and design things that are there for everybody, are there for most of your people, and get them focus on your objectives and not putting things on that are expensive. Could be a really helpful mindset shift.
Okay. And are there common themes of businesses that do this well? So industry, startups versus blue chip organizations, or are there any common themes you can see in the work you've done?
The common theme is just I can tell when the leadership cares. Like, that's the real common theme, and that is not specific to an industry. You've got sometimes startups can be really good at this because they're focused on new things, and that's a really healthy thing. You're not stuck in what has been done. They're constantly looking for what could be done. The downside of that is maybe they think about optics. They're thinking about attracting people and doing things that are maybe there to seemingly attractive but don't really align with well-being. On the other side of things, their corporate services have a lot of money to spend on this stuff, so they do a lot of activity. But really, the common theme is having a leadership team that cares. And I think our roles and people who are trying to influence the leadership team is get them caring about the results, get them caring about how it's going to move the dial on business, and also how it's actually having an impact on people's health. And that's stuff that everybody cares about. A program that has value is one that has impact.
Okay, great. Ryan, thanks again. Some excellent content there. We are going to make some of that content available so people can pick that up and run some of that stuff themselves. I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. And finally, Ryan, again, thanks. Great content. Thanks for putting that together. It was really, really useful and insightful. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Magic. Thank you.
Thank you.